I'm not convinced it ain't no acting or accident what the track emits. You strapped with gas that you ain't even practiced with. The fact is, you couldn't hit the...
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. I had to compose myself after watching the mountains of salt that sprung forth after Liv Morgan's defeat on Monday Night Raw because so many people are naive and thought Liv Morgan was actually going to win. Come on, man. Who was you thinking? I am very interested. I wish I could talk to a Liv Morgan fan. Ask them, sit down with them, have a cup of their favorite drink. Sir, ma'am, more than likely, sir. What on earth was you thinking? What was going on in your brain? Your brain probably rattled around like a jelly bean in a glass jar. Ain't no way in hell you thought Liv Morgan was going to win this match. Are you serious? You thought she was going to win for real? Oh, man. Wow. That's some powerful juju right there, man. That's some powerful stuff. There's no way. There's no way. Look, but that's the beauty of it, though. The beauty of wrestling is that they can get you to believe it. WWE did such a good job of building up Liv Morgan, had her countering the mantle hand slam. The getting kind of a little bit of an edge in the promo segments. She was getting a little bit more aggressive. But the video package almost got me. Okay? When they did the video package right before the match, I was like, oh, man. Could it be? Could it be that it was actually going to occur? But I stayed fast, and I was like, it ain't happening. There's no way in hell they're going to have Becky Lynch, who's been hasn't lost the title since WrestleMania 35. And they're going to have her lose in a random match on Raw? Even if it was built up a couple of weeks beforehand. It's a Raw. No, they're not doing that. No, they're not doing it. They're not going to blow all of the heat and all of the momentum of Becky Lynch, which, they've done a very good job of protecting Becky since her return and before she left. She doesn't just lose and get beat by anybody. Liv Morgan is not of that caliber. Not yet. So, I'm not upset. I am happy. I am glad that, it's sensible booking. You can't just because it's an underdog babyface doesn't mean they need to go over. In fact, you would have killed Liv Morgan by beating her, by her winning, rather. You would have killed the character. People don't understand, man. I say all the time on this channel. People, when you look at fairy tales, what happens when you say, and they all lived happily ever after? What happens? You close the book, you put it back up on the shelf, you never pick it up again. You know the story at that point. You've read it all. That's why characters need to be a little bit more dynamic, so that the happily ever after comes further back. Once you get that happily ever after, you have to now do something in order to keep the fairy tale going. But it's almost impossible. You look at all the times that WWE has captured the magical moment, the childhood dream, the breaking the glass ceiling. And how many times have that really turned into a really great championship run? Almost never. Almost never. When Daniel Bryan won the title, and I mean at WrestleMania 30 when he won the title, immediately shoved in the mid-card. Chris Benoit immediately shoved in the mid-card. Because you've already had your happily ever after. At this point, we just trying to, you in a holding pattern until we find somebody to beat you. It's that simple. So Liv Morgan would have gotten a big reaction for the moment, and then next week, it probably would have got the reaction would have diminished. 2 weeks diminished a little bit more. And then the first time she faced a credible opponent, she probably would have gotten booed out of the building, or people wouldn't have been interested. We literally just saw this with Nikki Ash. People were cheering and they were going nuts when Nikki first won the title. Then 2 weeks later, Nikki wasn't over. 3 weeks later, Nikki was actually getting booed. 4 weeks later, she's getting booted in the face by Charlotte or something like that. It doesn't work that way, man. There's a reason when you write a fairy tale, there are no sequels, man. You can't write the sequel. So it's better for Liv to have lost and had that the tease and the yank it away. And you can do it again. You could do it probably one more time, but without breaking the character of Liv Morgan. You're probably, these people who are completely and totally out of their minds and think Liv Morgan's going to win the Royal Rumble, you're completely delusional. There's no way Liv Morgan is winning the Royal Rumble. You can forget it. If you think she's going to win the title at day one, you can forget it too. It's not happening, man. Look, I would believe that the spot is earmarked for Bianca Belair because she's the one who, lost in 2 seconds or whatever to Becky Lynch in order to start this whole shabazzle. So she has to be made whole. Of course, she's busy currently doing something else we'll get into in a moment. But there is no way you put that title on Liv Morgan. It's just no way. Now, maybe you do something where Liv Morgan skips over to SmackDown and wins that title. Maybe. But that Raw belt, you can forget it. The likelihood of that happening is a good 90% the other way around. It ain't happening. So, but it was nice though. They did some really great stuff for the build up. Decent to good promos for the build up. Just, if you're smart, you know it wasn't going to happen. It's Raw in Memphis, and the crowd was pretty much dead throughout the entire match. There was no reason to pop that crowd with this match. Not when there's bigger and better paydays to come and building up a rematch. Becky cheated, protected her by cheating. Becky has beaten pretty much everybody by cheating lately. Especially grabbing the ropes, eye poking, stuff like that. It's been quite the ride. But Becky Lynch is going to get overthrown eventually. But it ain't going to be by Liv Morgan, I can tell you that much. All right. So, 7 minutes in. Welcome, everybody, to 3 Count Commentaries. I am your erstwhile host, MagMongoSlade. So, we're going to talk about Raw from December the 6th, 2021. I'm going to talk about the entire show because I do not have the energy to do separate videos. I'm running off of 5 hours of sleep right now and just working 12-hour shifts. So, as we've already talked about, Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan, the match for me was very clunky. It seemed like it was going smoothly in certain parts, and then in other parts, it seemed like they didn't really know where they were going, and it looked kind of rough. It just looked rough, especially in comparison to some of the other women and some of the other matches. And this was a very women's match heavy show. There was 3 women's matches on this show. One of them was short, but the other 2 were pretty long. As far as Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan go, it was right in the middle. Where I personally think Dewdrop and Bianca Belair was a better match than this. But the fans were out of it, and I think that's really what kind of hurt the match for me, is that the crowd wasn't in it. They were doing okay as far as Liv Morgan firing up. She did the Luthez press. The crowd was kind of into it because she was doing the little hammer fists or whatever. Becky, of course, was covering up, which, you probably shouldn't do, but it's modern wrestling. And so the match itself, I liked the finish. It was a good protective finish. And they told the story. The story is that Becky Lynch, relies on the manhandle slam, but Liv Morgan knows how to counter it. So then what ends up happening is she counters the counter, So that was nice, That was nice. It was kind of like Liv Morgan showed her hand, Like she showed a couple of weeks ago that she can escape it and get away from it. And that she was prepared for that and the disarmor. She was prepared for Becky's biggest moves. But she wasn't prepared to have those moves countered. So it was an experience thing. Fine. Okay, whatever, fine. Solid main event. They had the main event the same night as Lita and Trish Stratus, their epic main event from Raw 2004. So To be quite honest, I didn't really care for that match, the Lita Trish Stratus match. I think they had better matches than that. I get why people are, put it on a pedestal though, and I like Trish and Lita. I didn't really see them as being like Cena and Orton. I think that's kind of the mythology, is that Trish Stratus and Lita were these two huge superstars that were constantly in. I think Trish Stratus had more of a feud with Mickey or more of a feud with Victoria than she had with Lita. I think there was something there between the two of them due to them main eventing at Raw, but I don't think there was like a huge amount of mythology around the Trish and Lita. I think most of that is WWE kayfabe, because they don't want to put too much emphasis on a lot of the other women who really aren't under the umbrella anymore. All right, so let's go back to the beginning of the show, because we started this show with a steel cage match, which featured our WWE champion Big E versus Kevin Owens. So we got the cold open with Seth Rollins' mug, his gigantic Toucan Sam nose, and he was wearing a cane suit. And all of a sudden he was, of course, talking. Big E dropped, got to feel that sucker. I'm like, okay, is he being told to be Booker T? Or is he being Booker T on his own? Kevin Owens proclaimed the WWE title is really his, and that Big E is just holding it for him, and that he's going to punish Big E, and that's no lie. And he gave a wink to the camera, which I was like, "What are you, Alberto Del Rio?" So the cage match in itself was fun. It was a good long match too. It was about 30 minutes, I think. The big ending off the top of the, I don't know if it wasn't off the top of the cage. It was off the cage though, like off the top rope. Very weird finish though, as he didn't go for the pin after that. Instead, Big E just escaped the cage by going through the door. So Big E wins, of course. Right decision was made. At one point, Rollins had slammed the door on Big E and Kevin Owens so they can continue fighting. He wasn't done watching them fight, and he tried to do it again at this point, only to get stopped. So he then attacked Big E and he attacked Kevin Owens, and it seemed like Seth Rollins was gonna walk away on top. Then of course Big E fought from underneath, beat him up. We go to commercial and everybody's down. Everybody's down, breathing heavy and sweaty. And we find out through the replays that Big Bad Bob had made a statement. Lashley came through and crushed the buildings, knocked everybody over, like sand castles, just went over and just like boosh and kicked everybody ass on over. Later on, it took 3 hours to get an explanation for why he did that, even though what explanation do you need other than it's Bobby Lashley, he does whatever he wants to do. But they were disrespected because there's title matches and guys getting title shots, and Bobby Lashley isn't one of them. So they teased a babyface turn for Bobby Lashley, only for him to go back to being a heel. And guess what? I don't care. I'm not even going to complain about it. So is it going to be a fatal 4-way? Man, I hope not. I don't like multiple man matches. I've said it 100 times on this channel. I hate them. Fatal 4-ways, triple threats, they're just cop-outs, man. You could just have an eliminator. I mean, I don't see why Kevin Owens is getting a title shot. I mean, sure, he won that match, so he gets a title match, but he just lost a steel cage match to the champion. Like, really, what is the point of him being in a title shot, getting a title shot? So I really don't know. I wouldn't even want a triple threat match if we took Kevin Owens out of it. It's like, I would much rather Lashley fought one of these guys and then Big E fought the other one. And then there's an eliminator kind of situation where they agree to meet each other, maybe on Raw or at the Royal Rumble, after these guys are out of the way. You could have had Kevin Owens and Lashley without turning Kevin Owens, really. And Big E and Rollins, and then have Big E and Lashley at the Royal Rumble. Would have been fun. Now they're teasing a fatal 4-way. I don't know, man. I guess you need to do something with Bob because he's one of your top guys. But I don't know if I like that fatal 4-way concept. I hate the triple threat match. So we'll see how it develops. But Big E got a lot going on. You know, he's in three. They keeping him in three different feuds. He's got three or four different storylines going on. So that's not bad. You know, they're keeping him busy. He's not looking that great, but he's being kept busy, which is good because the title is sought after. People are, constantly attacking him, challenging him. And, it makes him feel important, and his performances are coming together. So I don't have a problem with what's going on with Big E. I actually quite like the WWE title picture. I just wish that somebody had some damn heat, and there is none because Big E keeps beating these guys up. Which is the thing is, the more contact they make, the less heat that they have. So if you can't have Big E beating them up every week, it just can't happen. And we also need to have staple things that occur. And by staple things that occur is always these tentpole things that I notice, like in really long form feuds or feuds that are really good. There's almost always a blasting point. Like stories have to have a hook, at the beginning, something that takes place at the beginning of the story that makes the story occur, and to hook the audience, make the audience interested in what's going on. But there also needs to be a blasting moment, a moment within the story where something actually happens and things change. Like it's not just a heel turn. Heel turns can honestly be that. Like for me, what the big change was, like Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. Like you go back to that storyline. What was the big change in that storyline? It wasn't when Eddie turned. Eddie turning was built up over time. You kind of saw it coming. The big turn is when Eddie says, the secret I was going to keep, I lied. That's the big moment, because now you're like, okay, now we're going to get the real reason Eddie Guerrero turned heel. The blasting moment when you talk about, Brett and Owen, was Owen not being tagged in at the Royal Rumble. He kicked Brett's leg out of his leg. And then, that's the heel turn. Everybody kind of saw that coming. And then the big moment is when Owen beats Brett. And yet Brett still wins the title later that night. And it's Owen in the aisleway looking up, thinking to himself, that should be me. That's the moment everybody's going to remember from that feud. And then Owen Hart, of course, wins the King of the Ring. And now we put Owen and Brett as sort of equals, with the difference being that Owen hasn't been champion yet. You need to have stuff like that occurring. There needs to be a time where Edge slaps John Cena's daddy. We need those kinds of things to occur in these feuds in order for them to feel special. In order for them to feel like all-time special feuds, you need to have things occurring. It can't just be we cut promos on each other for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. We fought a lot. We fought backstage a lot, and then that was it. It's like any two characters can do that. You have to define a character and what the character is willing to do. How far are they willing to go? How far are they willing to really go to get under your skin, to bother you? This is where something like cutting somebody's hair can be important. This is where, you can't get to it. When they ran Steve Austin over with a car, like that's an important moment. It's a little over the top because it's very cartoonish in terms of, you run a guy over with a car, that's murder. That's attempt murder. You might not want to attempt to murder some guys on Monday Night Raw. Well, actually, it seems to be a regular occurrence these days. But there needs to be some stuff like that that's happening that you can build on later, and that you can actually show characters interacting with each other. And that's been a big problem with WWE and AEW too, to a degree, is that they have not, really brought in those big moments. That's why I got so excited when it was an Impact and you had that moment where Moose, takes down Josh Alexander and his family is still in the ring. That's something you're never going to forget. You're never going to forget that a guy lost the title literally seconds after he won it. But more importantly, his son was in the ring when it happened. It's some of the most offensive, over the top. You'll never forget that. That's the kind of stuff we need to make these feuds iconic and to make that run iconic. You know, you need like a blast off point, you know, and we haven't gotten one of those yet. So until, I guess, just add more guys into the match. So fuck it. Make it a fatal 5-way, a 6-pack challenge, 32 men. Who cares? You know, it doesn't matter. As long as it's just going to be guys talking to each other and then fighting, it's not going to be anything major in my book. So, but I love me some Bob Lashley. Everybody knows that. So I'm okay with him being added to this thing. Zelena Vega came out there and confused everybody to how she talks. She first talked in an accent. Then she talked in her New York voice. And then she started speaking Spanish. So she gave you the full Monty in less than a minute. Her opponent was Nikki Ash, who she defeated with the code red. A clean loss for Nikki Ash as well. Nikki was distraught after being beaten yet again. Rhea was trying to cheer Nikki up backstage, and Nikki was fuming. She was very disappointed in herself. Then a quote-unquote fan was just hanging around backstage. Just hanging around, you know, at the water cooler, getting some pink lemonade. And they're like, "Oh, I love you. Can I have an autograph?" And Nikki's blushing. She's like, "Oh, yes, well, absolutely. I'll sign an autograph." She's like, "Well, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to Jerry the King Lawler." We didn't turn the backstage area into fan access, and now Jerry Lawler's out there. I think this one was a little low for Jerry. But it was nice seeing the King. He hasn't been on TV in a couple of months. So it was nice. And plus, they were in Memphis. He got a great reaction. This is all telling the story of Nikki's, likely her transformation. Of course, there's two ways that this could go. It could go that Nikki breaks, which is what I would prefer, and we do Nikki Ash No More, similar to Spider-Man No More, where she snatches off all of the superhero stuff and throws it in the trash and comes back as Nikki Cross. And I think I've said it before, Nikki Cross and Rhea Ripley are very similar characters. If she comes back as a twisted sister and was teaming up with Rhea Ripley, that would be something. That would be a great team, you know. But I think the other end of it is that she's probably just going to break up the team and go her own way. Or they're going to do the metamorphosis where she becomes fully Nikki Ash as she becomes something else. I don't know. I kind of want Rhea Ripley to get out of this. Because I want Rhea Ripley to be one of the people in the running to beat Becky Lynch. So she's got to get out of this spot, you know. In order for her to be considered a top star, she's got to get out of this spot. Really loving Zelena Vega, though. She's very good. And having Carmella with her is also very good. So I'm not against it. Not against none of that. Didn't quite like the match. Don't really like, but I'm not against any of the players or what they actually did. So we got the RK Bronament, tag team Bronament, and it is surrounding Riddle and Randy Orton in WWE blazers that definitely look like something Vince McMahon would have worn in an early episode of Monday Night Raw, or in one of those WWF Madison Square Garden. Oh, it was so awful. It was awful. I know those things are about to be on sale. Like, that's the first thing I thought of when I saw them. I was like, there's a reason why those things are on television. They're about to sell those things. Those blazers are probably about $40 online. And there's going to be somebody who's going to be like, I got to have that. And going to buy 300 of them. I can see it happening already. But Randy Orton wearing the blazer, he's attempting to assassinate his gimmick. Because he's supposed to be the straight man. And Riddle is being silly and talked him into putting on that damn blazer. Oh yeah, but the earpiece was also very funny. What made the earpiece even funnier is the fact that they didn't mention it. They did not mention at all that there was an earpiece, and Riddle kept touching the earpiece and getting messages. It was silly. It was pretty silly. Um, the first match in the tournament was the Street Profits versus AJ and Amos. AJ and Amos lose by countout as Amos tags himself in, gets really emotional, and ends up getting counted out outside. This led to the argument between Styles and Amos, where Styles tells Amos, like, you got to listen to me, man. This is how this team works. You got to listen. I tell you what to do, you do it. And Amos just walks away. He just, woof, small AJ Styles. You know not to tell me what to do. And he walked away. And AJ was like, Amos, what's going on, man? Why you acting like that? Then here comes Riddle. Riddle is Howard Bro Sells, and he does a reporter gig, and it was terrible. Most of that back and forth between him and AJ Styles was awful because AJ was still trying to sell that Amos is leaving, and Riddle is trying to land jokes. And you as a fan is not, conflicted. Are you supposed to be laughing with Riddle, or are you supposed to feel bad for AJ Styles? Because him and Amos are coming out at the seams. So what are you supposed to do? So AJ Styles tells Riddle it was a miscommunication and that he needs to get the hell out of there before he makes him swallow that microphone. So later, of course, Randy Orton is feeling oppressed by Riddle's peer pressure into getting him to wear this blazer and kill his gimmick. But the legend killer will not die. He took the gimmick off and gave it back to Riddle. Riddle continued to be gimmicked up for the rest of the night. The Mysterios defeated Alpha Academy. And then Riddle tried to interview Alpha Academy after their defeat and just got crushed by Otis. So the next week is the finals, the Street Profits versus Rey and Dominic Mysterio. This ought to be fun. I'm pretty sure they had this match recently, maybe within the last 2 or 3 months. But WWE doesn't have a tag team division that is in any way deep to do a real tag team tournament. It would be nice for them to try, though, because they have so many talented guys. Most of them are stuck doing 24/7 duty, chasing that damn 24/7 title. There's a wealth of talent right there that you could have just put in tag teams if you don't know what else to do with them. Like, what does it really hurt if Drew Gulak and Akira Tozawa are a tag team? Who does it hurt? Who does it displace? It doesn't displace or hurt anybody. Just a good usage for guys that you have on the roster that you're not doing anything with. And it helps fill up one of your divisions, which you desperately need. Desperately need more tag teams. I think also with Amos and AJ Styles on the verge of breaking up, they're going to keep that theme because the Mysterios have been on the verge of breaking up for a while. And so next week seems like it'd be a pretty good, opportunity if you're going to do it to break up the Mysterios or to continue the breakup of the Mysterios. It seemed like the right thing to do in my book. Damian Priest had an open challenge, and his opponent was Robert Roode, which I was really giddy for because Robert Roode almost never worked singles matches anymore. So this was a real treat. We got to watch Bobby Roode get in there with Damian Priest and have a pretty fun match with some distance to it. It took up some time. Roode looks great. And he can talk his ass off. I don't understand why. If it wasn't for his age, I'm pretty sure they would have pushed him to the moon. Even though I know him and Priest are around the same age, I believe. Or he might be a little bit older. But Bobby Roode did a pretty sweet spot where he countered I believe it was a springboard kick that Damian Priest does. I hate it so much, but he does it anyway. And he counters it with a spine buster, which I thought was great. Damian Priest wins a hard-fought match. The internet complains that Robert Roode isn't pushed more. He's 5 years into his WWE career, 4 years into his WWE run. And he's a multiple-time tag team champion, United States champion. won the NXT title. He's had a decent run in WWE. It wasn't the best, obviously. No, I don't believe it's used him to his full potential. But he's not in any danger, I don't think, of getting released or anything. After Damian Priest dispatched of Robert Roode, Dolph Ziggler jumped in the ring and super kicked him. He got no comeuppance, which means that Dolph Ziggler is likely next in line for the open challenge. Yes. Okay, fine. I'm okay with Damian Priest just having rando matches, but I do need for them to be building up somebody who can hopefully relieve him of that title so that he can move on and wrestle for the big belt. I'm thinking that guy might be Austin Theory, but I have on my tongue, Finn Balor as well. There's quite a few guys that you have here that are somewhat protected, or they wouldn't hurt Damian Priest to actually lose to them. Austin Theory, because he's in some ways entwined with Vince McMahon, and Finn Balor because he's Finn Balor. Most everybody else should be doing the job to Damian Priest, and even both of them probably should be as well. So the open challenges will continue until an appropriate opponent is found. Hopefully we get to do some more fun stuff. Maybe Damian Priest versus Rey Mysterio, Damian Priest versus Dominic Mysterio. Both of those could be pretty fun. I'm really enjoying Damian Priest. I really preferred him the other way before they changed his theme song and before they had him wear mascara all the time. And when he actually talked and was cool, now he doesn't really say much of anything. And it's not helping him. He's still getting a decent reaction, but, not giving him that promo time to delve into this character and get other people to play into the character. That's the important stuff, That's the stuff that we're missing out on that is going to end up holding Damian Priest back. Bianca Belair and Dewdrop had some really good stuff. Dewdrop attacked Bianca Belair during her entrance. So that kind of put Bianca Belair in a hole at the beginning. And she had to, of course, fight her way out of it against a much bigger opponent. They changed Dewdrop's theme song, which for the first time, I couldn't even hear it fully, but I gave it a thumbs up anyway because it's not that horseshit she had before. This match was, of course, all about whether Bianca Belair can do KOD to Dewdrop. That's why you put Bianca Belair in the ring with these big women. Can she do the KOD to these big women? They had a really good match against one another. Of course, that was, the center point of the story was Dewdrop's weight, her splashing, the Vader bombs and stuff like that. But Bianca Belair kept coming. Then Dewdrop started getting a little bit nasty, the eye gouging and hair pulling and that kind of stuff that really gets heat. And I really was down for that because that's old school stuff. It doesn't require a lot of trick knowledge. Just, rake the eyes, all that kind of stuff. It's very basic. So I had fun with this. Didn't mind the count out. As Dewdrop got lifted, the crowd stood up because they wanted to see that. Dewdrop grabbed the top rope, broke the hold, and then took a walk and walked off. And despite the fact that, you just had a count out in one previous match, the count out here actually makes a hell of a lot more sense considering this feud is not over. And if, Bianca Belair gives away that she can do the KOD to Dewdrop, then it's over. That feud is done. So it's better off with you waiting and savoring that moment until it actually comes rather than we're going to throw this segment out there and we're going to have this Bianca Belair just beat her. Because then it's like, okay, what's the point in rematches? And I think that Dewdrop is just there for the purposes of distraction. They're really going back to Bianca and Becky, more than likely. Eventually, they're going to go back. They're on the same brand. They are going back. But I'm okay with Dewdrop and Bianca Belair. I actually quite like their chemistry And I think that Bianca Belair being a bigger, taller, stronger woman, she needs somebody like Dewdrop in order to keep her over, because she's in the Hogan pattern. Hate to put it that way. It's just the only way you can put it. The John Cena Giant Slayer category. It's all going to be about whether Bianca Belair can lift him. Bring back Nia Jax or whatever, just to see if Bianca Belair can lift her. That's pretty much what it boiled down to. Vince McMahon is back. He told Austin Theory that he was going to have a match. Then told him, well, since you weren't ready before, we don't have time for your match, so you're going to have to find some other way to impress me. Austin Theory then attacked Finn Balor after he defeated T-Bar, and then took a selfie with it. So I'm guessing that's Finn Balor's next move, is trying to help Austin Theory. All right, I'm pretty sure this is not going to just be Finn Balor doing a bunch of fucking jobs. He may actually win the first couple of matches here. I'm interested because Vince is saying that to Austin Theory that he needs to expect the unexpected. And before he does anything, he asks them, did you expect that? And Theory was like, oh no, I didn't expect that at all. I wasn't ready for that at all. So I wonder where we're going with this. And I'm interested. I'm intrigued whenever the boss is on television. And whenever he has a protege, I'm very, very interested. But I'm also very cautious. And we'll see where this comes from. But they clearly like Austin Theory. They clearly like him. They're clearly going to do something with him. But what will it be? Inquiring minds want to know. All right, so the last segment, of course, is Miz and Edge. Talk about Miz and Edge, because I thought this was a very interesting segment. The Miz says that Maurice will never come to Memphis. Memphis is Podunk's backwoods, so she'll never come there. Then he says that he thinks that Edge is gone soft because Edge gave him compliments. Edge came out there and said that he meant the compliments, and that set off the Miz for some reason. For some reason, Edge being nice to him set him off and said, look, I don't need your niceties right now. I needed your niceties in 2006 and I got kicked out of that locker room. And that he was more famous than 90% of the roster and they didn't embrace him. Instead, they kicked him out. And Edge says, look, I pulled you aside and gave you a little bit of a pep talk, told you to hang in there. But, I went through the same thing a couple of years prior to you. He says, look, I don't attack new guys. I see a new face. I see a new opportunity. I don't hold people down. So the Miz said 2022 is going to be the year of the Miz, like every year, of course. And that he surpassed Edge in every conceivable way and will defeat him on day one. He said January 1, but it's day one. Edge accepted the challenge, and then Miz said that he wasn't scared of him. Edge flinched. Miz took a bump, and Edge was like, "You're not scared, huh?" It was like, okay, all right. I'm really enjoying their feud. This is good. This is really good. The Miz talks a lot about his Outcast promo, his Outcast origin story. There's a lot of, let's put it like, there's a lot of dirt sheet writers and stuff like that that are not happy whenever Miz brings this up. They think it's too old. It's old news. My thing is, it's an integral part of the Miz's character. It's his major core wound. Like every character should have a core wound. It's a KM Wyland concept that, especially your main character, they should have a wound. Something that occurred in their backstory that they can't get over. And ultimately, the story continues until they find a way to reconcile that core wound. So if you have, the death of Uncle Ben for Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man goes and starts being a superhero. With great power comes great responsibility. The words that he earned from his Uncle Ben, who is now dead. So now Spider-Man's core wound is, he felt responsible for the death of Uncle Ben, and he doesn't want that to happen to anyone else. Batman, of course, it was his parents. His parents getting shot in front of him, the pearls in the street. That's Batman's core wound. He doesn't want any other children in Gotham to suffer what he had to suffer. He'll never get over it. And the Miz being kicked out of the locker room and being treated like trash by, Chris Benoit and a bunch of other guys, he's never going to get over it. And I think that people saying he shouldn't be talking about that, it's like Kurt Angle not talking about his broken neck. It's an integral part of his character that everybody knows is real, and it's important as a motivator for the Miz. And to be quite honest, you can't take that away and keep the Miz. The Miz exists because of the way he was treated by those guys in the locker room in 2006. Those guys made the Miz, because when he went through that, when he survived that, he pretty much figured, okay, I can survive anything. I can adapt. I can learn. I can make mistakes and grow up, There's a lot of stuff that he learned going through that horrible situation that he went through. So when people are like, oh, that's all the Miz talks about is how he was, it's like, yeah, but it's like reading a Batman comic and Batman not mentioning that his parents got killed. It's like, yeah, we should know what the motivation for the character is. The Miz is always looking for validation. He will always be searching for validation, whether babyface or heel, because of the way he was treated in 2006. So the grandiosity of the Miz, the Miz is awesome, the Miz TV, the reality TV show, being the most must see, all this kind of stuff is him trying to validate that he was right and that he deserved to be there and that he is a star and that he is a superstar. And that's why he mentions that stuff all the time. And most people who have a core wound to that degree will mention it all the time, and it's a very important integral piece to storytelling, like Mick Foley and his childhood backyard tapes and that kind of stuff, the heartbreak that he's gone through, all the different things that he went through in his life growing up, I think he was like Brazilian middle class, but his wrestling career, being the king of the death match, that kind of stuff, it keeps coming back up. It comes back up for a reason. Ric Flair, he doesn't always talk about, the plane crash, but he always says he's the jet, he says he's jet flying all the time, right? Kiss stealing, wheeling dealing. That's his character. His thing was he was bad with money. Wheeling dealing. He had problematic relationships with women, kiss stealing, limousine riding, jet flying. He almost died in an airplane crash. Like, you can look at all of these different character things that Ric Flair brought up literally all the fucking time. Talk about Dusty Rhodes and Dusty Rhodes being the son of a plumber. He talks a lot about his dirt poor upbringing and how that, being blue collar, how that motivates him. That was his connection to the audience. Everybody has a core wound, that core motivation within them that, the audience knows is true, knows is real. And people they're trying to reconcile that as a character, or they're trying to use that to get attention or whatever the case may be. But it's an integral part of the story and an integral part of the character. So yes, the Miz being kicked out of the locker room in 2006 will always be a part of the character. It is, and it will always be a part of, just like the pipe bomb will always be a part of the CM Punk story. It will always be there because his core wound was similar. He was an outcast. They never really liked him. He never really got along with Triple H. When people bring that stuff up, it's, and to be quite honest, it's almost as if CM Punk can't talk about anything else. He's almost trapped by the pipe bomb, and to a degree, where it's like when the guy played Urkel, and now he couldn't play anything else. He was typecast. That's kind of how CM Punk is now. Like, I don't think CM Punk can do anything except what he's doing. Because what else are they going to do? It's like Sting. Like, look at Sting. Sting is the guy. I've been watching the Sting documentary. And he talked about, and this was years ago, of course. This was before he even wrestled Triple H. And he was talking about how difficult it was to stay in shape, but people want to see Sting look a certain way, which means he got to paint his face. He got to go through all the whole rigmarole because that's what people want to see. Even if it's too tiring for him, even if it's a lot for him, he's kind of trapped in being Sting. Ric Flair is trapped in being Ric Flair. Undertaker is trapped in being Undertaker. So sometimes guys, CM Punk is, trapped in being the anti-WWE guy, the counterculture guy. So of course he's going to be, and as I'm talking about this, and I'm kind of drowsy, so I'm just kind of like rambling. But as I talk my way through this, I'm thinking about it, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, that's why he mentions them pretty much every week, because when he can't, what is he? It's like the Miz not talking about being kicked out of the locker room. It's like Batman completely ignoring that his parents are dead. You can't. It's an integral part to the CM Punk story that he is anti-WWE, specifically Triple H. And, The Office, Vince and John Laurinaitis and all those guys. It's such an ingrained piece to his story that he will be remiss to not talk about it. So it's the same thing when people are like, oh, the Miz, all he could talk about is getting kicked out of the locker room. That was a long time ago. It's like, yeah, but, guys will never forget that shit. Okay? You never forget how you was treated by other people. Unfortunately, Chris Benoit did what he did and didn't get to see the Miz grow up. And I think that probably would have been the one thing that, the Miz searching for validation from a guy like Chris Benoit. But just think about how much that would have meant if Benoit had never done what he did. And for Benoit in, say, 2018 or something like that, he's well retired, still very respected. And he would have shook the Miz's hand or something like that and said, you know what? I was wrong for what I did. We were wrong to kick you out of the locker room. I'm pretty sure JBL was one of those guys too. And JBL has said, oh, I love the Miz, he says now. So I'm sure that helped. But we know Benoit was like the main guy who got him kicked out of the locker room. So it would have been, I think that would have been very nice. And maybe you probably wouldn't have heard about it as much because he probably would have gotten at least somewhat of that validation back. But then, of course, the character is motivated by it. So, you don't want to kill the character. So I spent way too much time on that. But yeah, the Edge taking the blame for the Miz being kicked out of the locker room. It's like, who else can he blame? Because who else was there? Nobody. Randy Orton was even on that brand. Randy Orton was on. No, wait, was he? Was Randy Orton on SmackDown in 2006? Matter of fact, Edge was not even on SmackDown in 2006. He was on Raw because he was the champion. So yeah, he's got his guys mixed up. Randy was on SmackDown. He was probably suspended or something silly like that for some ignorant shit he had been done. But yeah, because 2006 was the year Rey Mysterio won the title, and Randy was his first opponent before Randy went and got suspended. So yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense that it would have been him to do this to Randy Orton and not to the Edge. But we're building mythology here. Edge wasn't even on that roster, I'm sure, but he worked in the company, and he says, I went through a similar thing 7 years prior. So that's interesting that they're talking about, being ribbed, being bullied and picked on. And the Miz never got over it, but Edge did. So, the Miz is like, okay, I've surpassed you in every conceivable way, and I'm going to prove it. But also, not really much of a wrestler. I'm still kind of the guy everybody thought I was. Which I think makes that such a compelling story. Is that the Miz wants to be validated, talks about main event in WrestleMania, being world champion, his hot wife, all his millions of dollars. But Miz still doesn't like to take a punch. Like he still will avoid fighting if possible. Despite all his accolades, you would think that the Miz is a tough guy, but he's not. I saw one of the dirt sheets say WWE's going to have Miz beat a bunch of people for him to be a credible opponent for Edge. And I said to myself, do these people not know who the Miz is? The Miz is not going to have any in-ring credibility whatsoever. The Miz doesn't get credibility from winning a bunch of matches. He gets it from his craftiness, from his ability to hang in there, to steal one. You know, plus the Miz is a rubber man. You could do whatever to him, bounce him off the walls. He bends, but he doesn't break. And that's the important thing with the Miz, is you can't really break him. You could beat the Miz up 52 weeks a year, and he'll still be over. And he'll still be able to talk himself into, you know, another beating. And then he'll escape. You know, he'll escape once or twice. But he is, you know, a perfect sort of punching bag. You know, it's not about the Miz having some epic one-on-one encounter with Edge. That's not what this is about at all. No Miz match is ever about that, because he's not that good of a wrestler. But he is a great storyteller, and he also can hang in the ring when he needs to. I think he's hung in there, and some people say, oh, he was carried by, you know, Dolph Ziggler, or he was carried by Bryan Danielson, or something like that. Well, maybe if that was the case, that's fine. You know, at least you have the talent to be carried. Some people can't even do that. But the Miz can get people into what he's doing, you know, and that's really what Edge needs, you know. And this feud, like, it's going to be fun from the perspective of, you know, Edge needs somebody that that can hang with him on the mic, and to make, you know, real sort of storylines pop. And the Miz can do that, you know. So it's going to be a very interesting situation. And I like the novelty of it. Is really fun for me, you know, because the Miz is fun. You know, when he's, you know, not just being when it's not whacking Miz every week, where it's, you know, he's popping up, getting hit, and then that's it. When he's allowed to actually hang on the mic with people who are stars and show how good he is, then, you know, I think that would change perception of the Miz. But since the Miz essentially just adapts to wherever you put him in the main event with Bryan Danielson and John Cena, he finds a way to make it seem like he should be there. You put him in the mid card, he seems like he should be there. You put him in the undercard in a comedy role, he seems like he should be there. You know, so he just kind of has that adaptability, and he's gonna obviously, and has so far, risen to the level of Edge, which is what you wanted. You know, this is what you wanted. As far as the in-ring match is going to be concerned, Edge is going to handle that, and Miz will be able to do his part, and it's going to be safe. That's going to be the most important thing. Is Miz is not going to hurt Edge, you know, and he likely won't get hurt by Edge. So there's a lot of entertainment value to be had in a match where Edge is probably going to come out pretty good, and, you know, gonna beat up on somebody nobody likes. So so it's a good prep for AJ Styles, you know, which I'm sure is gonna be the next step. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, donate to the channel. Thank you guys for your time, man, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap. They